I'm not off a property, but what I hear and what I've seen over the last 3 years out here is that people say it's in their blood. I think people are concerned that they don't have other skills, or they don't have the assets to actually sell themselves to other businesses or other employment. There's certainly a sense of belonging and pride. Some of these properties are third, fourth, fifth generation. I think there's a high sense of failure if they have to look at other options. And, look, I think out here too, the communities accept that the properties really are the lively blood of the towns. As soon as the farmers stop spending money, the town stops, getting money. And, so I think they're probably some of the reasons why people stick with it. It's their life. I could recount a story of a family I worked with probably about 18 months ago. They're in a situation, borrowed a large amount of money for their property. It was connected to a family member's property, and they also owed, I think, the family member, some money, which they borrowed to get going. The wife was really keen to stay on the property, loved the country life. The kids really enjoyed the property. The husband wasn't so committed, and I think if he had his way, he would have left. So I think properties, from a nostalgia point of view, can be a trap. But when you're talking about properties that have been in a family for 3, 4, 5 generations, I think some people do feel that they're obligated to keep up that family tradition. I can recount another story of a guy who went through a divorce, and even though leading up to the divorce he was highly stressed, depressive episodes, when it was all finalised, it was a relief for him, because he actually didn't want to be on the property. And having this divorce force that decision to be made to sell up and, for settlement, he actually had an out. The worst thing that I've seen in my time out here as a mental health clinician is services coming in and telling people what they need to do. This is what you need to do to fix your situation. People don't like being told what they need to do. I think it puts up an instant barrier, and it's very hard to get that down. I think that, a little bit of self-disclosure or a relative life experience, disclosure of something you've been through, that might help people recognise that you don't have an ideal, you're not in this great job with good pay and no stress. It kind of puts you on the same page sometimes, as long as it's, appropriately done. I think having the opportunity to get out there and actually spend time with these families, rather than just seeing them in a 1-hour clinic session in the town. And look, I know that we've discussed previously the opportunity to go out and work alongside these guys, whether it's in the kitchen or whether it's working sheep or on the fences or whatever. And logistically that's not always, it's not possible. But I think ideally it would be a great way to go about touching people in a human way rather than a official clinical way. Historically, probably 20 years ago, you had a very stable workforce out here. You had GPs who, this was their life. They weren't necessarily in it for, pure financial reward. And I'm not saying that's how it is now, but we certainly see a more transient workforce. So we have locum doctors coming through now and then. We have doctors who will come and spend a few years and then move on. We'll have clinical staff who will come in and do a couple of years and move on. And I think locally the communities kind of get a sense of, here we go again. I've got to tell my story again, or how much experience do these guys have because they've just come out of uni for their internship or, their first year or two of experience. And I think that puts up a barrier. I think if you can demonstrate that, you're going to be involved in the community, if there's some sign of commitment, whether it's, buying a house or relocating your family instead of a fly-in, fly-out situation, if you commit to a lengthy contract, then people have a surer sense of security that you're not just here for a quick contract, get your pay and you're going to disappear. You actually develop a concern. I think the approach in years gone by, where you would have, you'd have the chaplain or your priest or your flying nun or your whoever it is, actually knowing the families, becoming the family's friend, and being there as a support person. I think that was an ideal way to help with mental health problems or challenges. I think if we were to go down an ideal path again, I'd like to see resources put into supporting that type of approach, so that mental health isn't confined to a clinic. It's not confined to, the Queensland Mental Health Service. I'd like to see a lot more standard education provided. We don't need to use complicated lingo. We don't need to use textbook jargon. We need to be able to associate with the person. We need to get rid of the complications of diagnosing and look at the symptoms. Let's look at the reality. Let's look at whether people are eating or sleeping or arguing or, contemplating, suicide every time they walk out of the house. We have to get over complicating mental health problems because we all have them. It's not like a complex neurological procedure in an operating theatre. It's everyday stuff. We need to make it an everyday process to just help people, be better aware and have some better coping skills.